Hello nerdy birdies, this is Kaylee, and I'm here today to just kind of chat, I guess. I wanted to make a quick video talking about my favorite kinds of ephemera, and just as I start filming, my cat starts yelling at me. But yeah, so I'm here today to make another journaling video, and I think that I want to talk about my favorite kinds of ephemera. Now this is just going to be a sitting and chatting video. I'm not gonna hold anything up or anything, but I'm just gonna kind of talk about what my favorite kinds of ephemera are and why I like to use those particular things in my journaling spreads. So let's jump right into it. I suppose the first thing, my first favorite, and these aren't in any specific kind of order, I'm just talking about them as I think about them. So the first is postcards. I absolutely love using postcards for journaling. You can do this in one of two ways, I suppose, depending upon kind of how much time you have and stuff like that. I usually just buy postcards from the places that I'm visiting if they have postcards available, and then kind of stick them into my journal from there. Or you can write yourself a postcard and send it to yourself, and then stick that postcard in your journal, like when you get home or when the postcard arrives. I've seen some people do that, and I think that's a really cool idea as well. I've got noisy kitties today. But yeah, so postcards. Postcards are great because you can find, like, there's usually different designs of postcards. You can find some that are more photographic, that are more art-based, and they fit into kind of a lot of journals. So yeah, postcards. Postcards are pretty great ephemera. In carrying on from that, stamps are also one of my favorite kind of ephemera, and by that I mean like postage stamps. One of my favorite kind of things to look for when I go thrifting is to look for stamps, because people like tend to collect them together and they make great ephemera. Or if, say, I've gotten like a card or something from someone, say I've gotten a card or something from someone, you know, and they used a cool stamp, then, yeah, I like to use those stamps in my journaling. By the same token, these technically aren't ephemera, but I'll mention them anyway. I really like collecting rubber stamps in my journals, but stuff like the so in the US, the stamps you can get at visitor centers, at national parks, those kind of stamps. So I will kind of include them as a tangent, I suppose, to ephemera, because it's not like the stamps I have in my personal collection. It's stamps I can kind of only get while I'm out and about visiting these places, I guess. So I like those as ephemera too. So another piece of ephemera that I really like to put in my journals, and I'll admit I got this one from Pinterest, is receipts. I don't tend to put the whole receipt in my journals when I use receipts as ephemera. I tend to just snip off the top part that kind of has like the shop name and the date and stuff like that. This is especially cool if, say, the receipt has like a design or something on the top, like has the shop logo on the top. And I like using receipts because it reminds me kind of where I've shopped. So if I am going back to a place, then yeah, I'm like, oh, I can visit that shop again. And sometimes it gives just handy information like the address or something like that. So I can, if I'm taking my journal with me, I can use the receipt and thing. I also like using receipts from like cafes and stuff like that, because it's like, oh, that was that little treat. Like, oh, I really enjoyed the, you know, the latte I got from that particular cafe, or stuff like that. as I say, I tend to cut off any like personal information for myself, so that it's not, you know. Okay, sorry about that. Cat demanded my attention for a minute. So the next, up here, there we go. Okay, so my next kind of piece of ephemera that I like to pick up for my journals is cup sleeves. So from like cafes and stuff like that. For example, I went to Philadelphia last week and we stopped at a coffee shop called Menagerie, and they had really pretty cardboard cup sleeves that had the shop logo on, so I picked that up for my road trip journal. But I really like those, especially if they have, like, again, art or the name of a cafe or stuff like that. I suppose I should mention, really, I'm talking specifically about ephemera that I can pick up while I'm out and about. My favorite types of ephemera to pick up while I'm out and about, instead of, like, because obviously you can buy ephemera packs from, you know, from shops and stuff like that. That's not the kind of ephemera I mean. I mean the ephemera that I can pick up while I'm out and about. So I'll probably include that in the title just to make it clear, I guess. But yeah, another really cool thing I like to pick up as ephemera is business cards. I'm a little bit pickier when it comes to business cards, admittedly. I don't just pick them up willy-nilly, but I do like to pick up business cards to include in my journal if either one, I really enjoyed the shop and I want to make a note of it, or if I'm like if the business card like has really cool artwork on it. Sometimes I've just picked business cards up for their art, if I'm honest. That tends to happen at like artist alleys and stuff like that, like conventions. But yeah, so I like to get business cards. What else is there? It's there on the tip of my tongue. Okay, so branded scraps of paper is another cool thing I really like picking up. It can be tissue, like it can be like a food wrapper, it can be tissues like branded napkins, like branded paper bags, that kind of stuff, where you can just kind of tear off the logo or stuff like that. So for I'm saying stuff like that too much. There are so for example, I really love when places give me paper bags, because especially brown paper bags, just because I like using them as backing paper in my journal. They just add a nice aesthetic touch, in my opinion. So yes, like scraps of paper, so scraps of branded paper. I will try and, so for example, if I go to a restaurant, if I go to a burger place and the paper that the burger is served on has the name, I will like tear a clean corner off the paper and save that for my journal. I suppose in the same vein as postcards, but also not postcards, something else I like to pick up is like exhibition notices. So if you go to an art gallery, for example, sometimes they look like postcards, but they're basically miniature posters to describe the exhibit that you're going to see. I really like to pick those up when I can find them, because they're just full of good information, and they help me. They just help me remember, I guess. They help like jog my memory of certain things. The next things I'm going to talk about, I suppose, technically aren't really ephemera in the sense of it, but they are things that I like to pick up out and about for my journal. So stickers is one of those. So for example, like when you go to a business and they have little free stickers that you can take to kind of remember them by. I really like those. obviously I went to Trail Days a couple of weeks ago, and my journal for Trail Days is so full of stickers that we picked up from vendors at that event. So yeah, stickers. So that's kind of like a tangent one, I guess. And the other, and again, kind of a tangent ephemera, is photos. So stuff like Purikura or photo booth photos, like photos that I haven't taken myself and printed at while I'm at home. You know, kind of like because a photo booth or something like that. I said it again. But yeah, I love sticking those in my journals. I love getting them to stick them in my journals. I suppose another piece of ephemera that I like to pick up sometimes, not necessarily often, but it does happen from time to time, is like food wrappers. But for example, like the paper off a roll of mints, or like a little section of like a bag of candy or something like that. That's something else I will sometimes like to put in my journal, especially if I've gone somewhere. So for example, at Disney, if I pick up like a pack of Disney snacks, I will pick up, you know, I will keep the wrapper like from the snack, and then I will cut a portion of that wrapper off and put it in my journal to remind myself of the snack, and also just because the packaging is usually cute. Along that line, another ephemera that I really like to collect, that I'm really guilty of collecting, is tags. So for example, like tags off of plushes and clothes, and stuff. Like tags off of plushes and clothes. I have an entire journal dedicated just to cute tags off of plushes. So for example, Squishmallow, like the Squishmallow tags, where it gives you a little bit of a little description of the personality of the character, like that. That's the best way I can think of to describe it. But stuff like that, that's, sorry, I have to say it again. But for me, the big tag one is plushes, but every now and again there will be cute tags on clothing. So clothing and plushes are the big one for me, but it can come off anything really if I think that the tag is cute, or if I want to particularly remember like an item of clothing that I picked up. Like, oh, so for example of a more basic, I suppose an example of a more basic clothing tag that I might keep is, oh, you know, it was really raining on this trip, so I had to buy this hoodie because I was ill prepared, or something like that. Like it's got a little bit of a humorous story to it, I guess. Yeah, it's got like a little bit of a humorous story to it. I suppose the last piece of ephemera I will mention is doodles. Like, I don't get these very often, but I always keep them when I do. So for example, if say a server at a restaurant has done a little doodle on my receipt, then I will keep that. I realize that ties into receipts, but that's just the specific example. I've had a couple of people just give me doodles of theirs. So I like to keep hold of those because I think they're really precious. Like a waiter once at an Olive Garden gave me a little poem, because he also came from the UK like I did. So I suppose a little solidarity moment. He gave me a little poem, and I have that tucked in one of my journals. So yeah, I think that's about everything I can think of for my favorite types of ephemera to pick up while I'm out and about. So if you can think of any others, please let me know, because I'm always looking for different ephemera. I'm always looking for different things I can spice up my journals with. I don't know about future content, so I won't say anything about that here. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't and become a nerdy birdie. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends. Bye.